This is a Clouds weather alert.
Good late Thursday, early Friday. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. We'll get to that local North Florida and South Florida forecast here in just a few moments. But right now, we need to start off here at the top with major Hurricane Hilary in the eastern Pacific because it's going to have an impact there toward the west coast of the United States. Something that's very, very unusual here. Maybe a direct tropical storm impact. It's going to weaken down there as we have cool waters to the north, less favorable conditions, but it's moving quick enough and it's going to be strong enough here to still be able to maintain itself to have a pretty big impact there in toward parts of California as we look ahead there in toward the timeline, especially Southern California there, it looks like. So got to be really mindful of what could happen here. This would be a big national story, and we've turned that logo red because of that there. I know it's 12:03 here in the east where we're at, but 9:03 there Pacific time right now. And it's going to have a lot of rain with it, some wind, some coastal impacts here, maybe even isolated tornado threat, which is very unusual there towards Southern California. I think the rain will be the biggest threat. We'll get into that here more in just a moment. So just something you can see here very clearly on our satellite. I'll take the track off for a moment. You to see that it's really, really become well defined down there in the eastern Pacific off of Mexico, south of Baja California. So again, a dangerous situation here as we're looking in terms of that flash flooding. I mean, the winds again going to calm one down some, but let's go ahead and dive into the tropics. We'll get more into that local information in a few moments, but let's go ahead and see that official cone perspective here. The National Hurricane Center track for the next 5 days. You can see here as you track this system, those winds right now at 125 miles an hour maximum sustained. They'll be down to 65 as we have that there just south of San Diego. It looks like there Sunday evening per se in mountain time. That's how they're doing this track right now. So just something to kind of bear in mind. I know we're in Eastern time here. I'll take our clock off just for a moment. I don't want to confuse anybody that might be watching from a national perspective. Of course, our focus is generally our local 62 counties, but right now we need to touch on this big national story because it's been a long time, even since a remnant impact of a tropical system's really gone on through there. But you have to go back to the 1930s for a direct impact from a tropical system, and some of the tracks earlier on that had the time set quite right there in terms of just the overall timing here with that center coming across just into Southern California. Actually have this as a tropical storm now, an actual tropical storm, not just a maybe extra tropical system. So that's something to bear in mind here. Actually something that could still have a name, Roy. In terms of having that organization and getting advisories. I know you can kind of still keep the name and still get advisories in different ways. I know that's after, I know, with Sandy back in 2012. It's not going to be anything like Sandy here, so don't get me wrong, but it's still going to be a big deal for these folks out there. In terms of, I know we could still have advisories and warnings with an extratropical impact because of what happened with that. This storm system here, are going to have a lot of local impacts for folks there. San Diego, it looks like areas there around Yuma, Arizona, but even up toward Palm Springs as we get back in toward California. So it's just got to be kind of keeping our eyes on this because 65 mile an hour maximum sustained winds, you don't see that very often here, to be quite honest, approaching California. But it's not about the wind or the tornadoes necessarily. Some coastal conditions be pretty nasty, but it's about the flooding rains. As we go ahead and say in now here that rainfall forecast from the Weather Prediction Center for the next 5 days. And if you're watching from our local areas here, you might be wondering, why am I so concerned? Because these colors are not overly high here. But the thing about it is, in California, they don't get much rain all year in a lot of these places. So I know you're seeing 4-6 inches here in some of these areas, and that is a lot. I mean, you don't get that much rain really for a good bit here, and they don't get much rain this time of year generally anyway. So a very unusual, a very anomalous situation here for these folks out there. We could have some really serious conditions, and this is a different color scheme than we use on the other rainfall forecast, which we'll see for our local viewers here in a few moments. But you can see that toward Yuma, 4-6 inches. The forecast in Arizona. Now San Diego 2-4, but that's still a lot for those folks because these are not areas that drain as well. And based on the latest track information, a track further east gets LA out of the heavier rains, and same for Bakersfield there. But to the east, like around Palm Springs, you're going to have more rain. And we'll talk about them in a moment. Victorville, they'll be getting a little bit more rain as well as we're getting east of Los Angeles. So very unusual to be talking about West Coast weather on here, but this is something that's a big national story we need to touch on so folks are aware of it. I mean, you see the rain to the south even in toward parts of Mexico. I mean, that's extraordinary, 10 to 15 inches there. I mean, some areas over 15, but even for the California counties and California cities, 4-6 inches are quite a bit. Even see that one little red speck there just north of where it has a G in Los Angeles that is showing maybe upward about 10 inches. There's a couple others as you get further closer to Nevada, maybe even into Nevada a little bit too. And again, this maybe doesn't even really help you guys in some ways, that color scheme, because it's more for eastern systems here and the ones in the Atlantic when they make landfall, because this wouldn't be a huge deal for certain areas unless they were already flood prone in Florida or the like. It would be, I mean, localized, you'd have some issues, but we wouldn't really have to just stress this as maybe one of the more volatile, one of the more dangerous setups. I mean, in terms of the tropics that this area is going to see here for many years. So again, that's I don't mean to overhype this, but I mean, this is a local impact graphic I have here, and things can change because this is an anomalous situation. But right now, our Palm Springs in California, major Hurricane Hilary will be down to a tropical storm by the time it's moving into toward California. That's the forecast right now. And the winds 30 to 40 sustained at points, gusts to 50, with the worst expected late Sunday into early Monday, really. At this point, again, that could shift around some, but that's a medium impact, the tornado threat medium, which you don't generally have one out there, so that's something they got to stay alert for out toward that area in California. But then the rainfall, I know 36 inches around here, that would be like maybe a medium impact, medium risk. But out there, just with the way the soil is and just some different aspects, I mean, you have some of these areas that are really populated too. I mean, you can already have poor drainage there at points, but I mean, it's really about just not used to be really getting that much rain here. Just not used to getting that much rain, is what I'm trying to say. So, 3 to 6 inches there on average around Palm Springs, and isolated totals around 8 inches. That's, I mean, really the impact of that's going to be severe. It would look like, I mean, extreme. I mean, really. So we really got to be paying attention out there. Again, we probably have to come on here at times because it's such a big national story. So again, just got to keep an eye on that toward California with major Hurricane Hilary. It won't be categorized as a hurricane. We don't think at that point when it's in California, even in Southern California, toward San Diego, far Southern California, and then toward Yuma, Arizona. But again, we'll just have to continue to watch things here because this is an anomalous situation. You're very unusual. So just something to kind of touch on, something to keep in mind here in the Weather Center. So again, we'll be watching, we'll be tracking, obviously, as the timeline does go along. But let's go ahead now and move along in the show toward a look here at the tropical climatology toward the Atlantic here. This is what you expect in the Atlantic basin as we're looking at things. I know, just to kind of trying to give you an understanding of what's going on there. And we'll have to watch, of course, we'll have to watch things here and toward the Atlantic. There's several systems to watch, so don't get me wrong here, but right now nothing that's overwhelmingly concerning for us here at 12:11 a.m. on this August 18th, 2023 here in the East. So you can see the next 2 months, that's when we have the most impact here. So that's something we'll be looking at, but thankfully, as I'll go back real quick, I have a zoomed in side of it on infrared. We don't have anything right now like this at the present stage anyway. This monstrous hurricane in the Pacific here. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. Again, it's going to weaken as it gets toward California, but it's going to be bringing a lot more moisture than they used to. So again, at least nothing like that right now in the Atlantic. No named systems in the Atlantic even. So that's the good news. Of course, we look at all this stuff. We also think about what happened in Hawaii. Hurricane Dora had a different impact. They had a Dora out there. Had a much different impact than you generally expect from tropical systems, causing all those people indirectly to lose their life in that wildfire situation with the high pressure there in the north. But Again, our thoughts and prayers go to everybody involved there. But let's go ahead and look here more toward the late Thursday National Hurricane Center update right now. That 7-day cyclone formation probability. And you can see here 70% chance of development further on out in the Atlantic. Those systems, I mean, really far out there with 50%. And we have a system at a 20% chance. The one right now that we'd have to kind of watch, and it's actually give us some moisture, has a 30% chance of developing. But that'd be toward the Gulf of Mexico here next week, not necessarily as it brings us some rain on Sunday here. That's when our main timing of that rain would be. But otherwise, other than that day, things are going to be quieter around here than they've been with the rain, but it's going to start getting hot again. It'll be a little bit drier heat in some ways, but not by much, but a little bit here. You'll be able to kind of tell by the low temperatures in that forecast that we have for you guys there. As you see, our next names in the Atlantic, Emily, Franklin, Garden, and go over the next column there. You have Harold. So again, just something to kind of be mindful of as we go ahead and go on over toward the next 7 days. Now, in terms of the rainfall, you don't see a whole bunch here toward our area. Some of that tropical moisture from that tropical disturbance will be going more toward our south here. Really south of the 62 counties here, just to kind of emphasize those to the viewer at home. But again, you can see here southwest Florida getting some rain. They need rain in parts of that area. Other parts, they don't need the rain. They need rain in Texas as well, and they might get some from this disturbance next week to cool down a bit. From this, maybe even get a weak tropical storm, and unlike in California, a weak to moderate tropical storm in Texas generally wouldn't have as much of an adverse effect. A weak one would actually probably be a beneficial impact for where they need to rain in Texas in some ways and cool things off. But in California, a weak to moderate tropical storm, almost maybe even a strong tropical storm based on that forecast of 65-mile-an-hour winds into the south, that could have a really adverse impact based on just the setup that we're in right now and the overall topography, the geography, and just the real local history of dealing with these systems. So very interesting. But of course, when we're not on the air, you can go to carter.com/radar for an interactive look at things. I know we were maybe using that out there tonight. There was a high school football exhibition game, that classic there, that fall classic per se. Bradford versus Chiefland there. And in that contest, Bradford was leading 28-6. It was called at halftime, though, because of some weather was coming toward that area. We mentioned on Facebook how it was coming in that direction. We also mentioned now how there was a chance that we could end up seeing that Roy just kind of take its time, and ended up taking so much time it felt probably where Roy got there. They had already called things, but at least things weren't too bad down there toward Levy County. So that's the good news in that regard and that part of the storyline. So again, just continuing to watch things, continuing to track things here. I know you guys locally probably want to see that local radar because we're going to have a few passing showers here even tomorrow morning here as we're waking up. I know it's past midnight now, but let's go ahead and see real quick some of that local radar and those temperatures before I get more into toward the show here. You'll be able to see that rainfall right now, Lafayette County, a little bit there south of, it looks like, Cross City there in Dixie County, but not much really getting into toward Levy County. Ended up kind of coming up short there with that rainfall getting down there in that event. But earlier in the day, you can see the last 12 hours, spots getting rain around Jacksonville Airport, getting more rain than almost anybody here, according to this. Quite a bit of that falling there in northern Duval County. Had a couple road warnings around. We had to come one for. They were both almost simultaneously issued. One toward areas there in the Swanee River Valley, one toward Taylor County, like the power outage known as, in toward that area. And then we even had a road tornado one in South Florida toward Lee County. We had at least a funnel cloud apparently reported there from broadcast media around 6:32 in Lehigh Acres area. So pretty busy day here in the Weather Center, and it's going to be busy here as we're looking out toward California in the days ahead. So I know one other thing we'll be watching tonight is sending me maybe overwhelming in a lot of spots, but could have a fog threat around. So just keep in mind you want to slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination and make sure your vehicle is as visible as possible to those other vehicles by using your low beam headlights and leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. So we'll see the extended forecast now for the next 7 days. You can see 30% chance of rain there on that Friday. 40% on Saturday, and then going up towards 60% on Sunday. More of that tropical moisture around. We'll watch that here too. Not expecting anything crazy, but it is summertime. If we don't get enough cloud cover, get enough moisture in there, you can get some maybe elevated type of storms there from going from strong to severe. I mean, that's possible pretty much always here still with these type of temperatures in play, unless you're just getting like so much cloud cover you're suppressing things enough. But you can see there 95 Friday, 96 Saturday, 93 on Sunday here, 95 on Monday, 96 Tuesday, 97 Wednesday, 97 Thursday. It's probably gonna get hot. This is late August. And this is above average here again. Unfortunately, now the lows staying about average here. Maybe not quite as much humidity around, but I mean, you might not notice it too much, but a little bit less here. So that's some good news at least. It'll take a little bit more. I mean, may very well still get there, but take a little bit more to get to the heat advisories, excessive heat warnings, because even the temperatures look kind of similar here, maybe even a little bit warmer, closer to 100 toward Tallahassee next week in the air temperature range. The heat index won't be quite as high, but again, you're kind of splitting hairs here, and it would be very well start having some issues still with those heat alerts coming into play. So, yeah, and we'll be watching, we'll be tracking, of course, in that regard. Let me see if there's any questions from any of the viewers here. Give me just a moment. I'm going to see if I can check that here and try to give you guys the very latest on everything. I know it's all about protecting you, all about protecting your friends, and all about protecting your family here on this late Thursday night, early Friday here. So let's just see if there's any questions from anybody. I don't see anything. I know system kind of wasn't popping things up there right this now, so there's a small chance I could have missed them, but hopefully, if you guys have anything, I'm going to be able to see it. But again, just thanks so much again for watching. We'll be watching that system toward California as well here as we look ahead in toward the timeline, that big national story. Again, not too much on the radar right now. Get a little bit more moisture here later tonight. You see 80 degrees right now, Tallahassee, 75 Keystone, 77 Jacksonville Airport there. And just giving you an idea of some of those readings. I know where I'm at here east of Stark. We're about 75 degrees right now, and that thermometer, that reading here in Bradford County. So just checking behind me to see what that's showing. And then again, the reason the logo is red is not because of anything around here. We're not an alert mode because of anything around here or anything that's headed our way. But as we look on out toward the west here, you can see moisture in Arizona. But I have to turn off our radar here, Roy, and then we're going to go ahead and get that full satellite loaded back up again. And then you have to look to the south. And then you see, unfortunately, if I go over, I guess I need to go to the full one, not the, I'm not used to the West Coast satellite, Donna, so that's why. I mean, this is a big deal. We don't have systems like this out there very often. They even really have to use our systems for more toward Hawaii. We'll have threats in this toward California again. But there you go. That's our full satellite there. You can see major hurricane. It could be a Cat 4 here. Major hurricane Hillary. And then you can see toward Baja, California there, and then up in the ward, the time is 24 hours here, but in between, I mean, that'll be, let's do the conversion there, that's 8 o'clock Eastern, Sunday night there, you can see where that is, and it kind of goes across here, some of these different areas. It's going to cool things down some, too. I was looking at some of the metrics there toward Palm Springs, and then you can kind of see here as we get further on up, our icon there, it's over there a little bit further in the picture, maybe just a tad bit off toward, I guess, the west, but looking here at some of our latitude and longitude information here, but again, just continuing to watch here as we're looking back there in toward that picture, but let's get back toward home here again, and that's North Florida and South Georgia. I know there's, again, a radar view that has a few things on it there, north of Mayo, south of New Bern there, but we had that accident that was headed toward Chiefland break on up on us there. That was good news. So unfortunately, things ended up getting caught into lighting. That was getting closer in that range there and causing some concern. It was exhibition football, so not actually something that's really counted for the season. So at least not having an impact in terms of that schedule. But let's look at the northeast, mid-Atlantic. There is a small chance here We could have a watch toward parts of Pennsylvania and New York here. It's kind of unusual. Around, it looks like Harrisburg, I saw one here. You can kind of see Scranton there, and then up in there toward Oneida. You have Binghamton already getting some thunderstorm activity right now. So, picture there, it's a little bit busy. There's a small tornado risk up there, non-zero though this time of night, even extending to New York City. So that's something to watch. Not overwhelming. Again, that's 1 out of 5 type of tornado risk there, marginal. But still, there's something to be aware of up there if you're watching or have family and friends up there. But a lot bigger deal toward areas like Palm Springs there in California. We're going to be tracking it here through the weekend. Big time flooding is possible. Again, we don't want to overhype things. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe with this type of system, it's not as nasty as it ends up being here portrayed right now by the model guidance, because we're just not used to this type of impact. But if we get the amount of rain that we think we're going to get out there, could have some big time problems. So we need to watch things out there very carefully toward that part of the country. Again, we don't talk about the West Coast very much at all. This is something that you don't generally get, though. We don't generally get, as we go ahead and turn that satellite back on one more time, we don't get it very often at all. It's going to weaken significantly, but it's still going to bring a lot of moisture in. That's the biggest threat, the flood threat. There's areas here, the topography. I mean, you have burn scars, you have things like that. You have areas where, I mean, you have mountainous type of regions here, points and things. The ground doesn't handle that rain very well at all. And you still have a threat of wind and maybe an isolated tornado, which is a story in and of itself. But and then there's coastal hazards, depending on where it's tracked exactly. I mean, stuff you're not used to there with rip currents and the like there, maybe across the Southern California coastal waters. But again, something to watch, something to track, and we'll be doing it here in the Weather Center for you. Major Hurricane Hilary in the Pacific, a big time deal for those folks as we look out there in some instances. So that's going to do it for now. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for trusting me. We'll be watching this all weekend long here as necessary, bringing you updates, and then we'll be watching our local weather, see if there's any type of severe concerns on those microscale levels as well. Sunday looks like to be the wettest day, and we'll have to see if we get some enhancement of some stronger storms that maybe become severe and be a little more interesting there on Sunday if we were able to get enough heating of the day in there to mix with the overall setup. So we'll be watching for now. Have a great night. Have a great weekend.